sixth graders. Today we are going to be looking at how to find unit rate in a ratio table. So we were looking at how to use a ratio table before. And we talked about you always start at the beginning, that first column, and you either multiply forward or divide backwards. So either multiplying forward or dividing backwards to find what's missing. And we always use the first ratio. Then we talked about, oops, I skipped a page, bummer. Okay, then we talked about unit rate. And unit rate being a comparison of a unit to one thing, like miles per gallon. So how much you could go with 1 gallon of gas. So it's always a bottom number of 1. So that's how we know we have a unit rate. The 1 is always on the bottom. Well, today what we're going to do is we are going to use our knowledge of ratio tables. So organizing all of our information into a table and then finding out how to get to unit rate, which is having the 1 on the bottom. So we're kind of combining everything all into one. So let's look at our first thing. So let's compare the first ratio we want to compare are hot dogs to hamburgers. Okay, so let's say you own a food truck. And in your food truck, you sell hot dogs and hamburgers. And you sell a ratio of, for every 20 hot dogs that you sell 5 hamburgers. So that means that I sell more hot dogs than I do hamburgers every time. Probably because hot dogs are less expensive than hamburgers. Or sometimes people buy like 2 hot dogs at a time, but they only eat 1 hamburger at a time. Okay, so it makes sense. So my ratio is every 20 hot dogs I sell 5 hamburgers. But I want to know how many hot dogs do I sell for 1 hamburger. So for every 1 hamburger, how many hot dogs do I need to have on hand to sell? So I'm going to do the exact same thing that I've been doing all along to find unit rate. So I want to know, how do I get from my initial ratio of 20 over 5 to be able to fill in this hole right here? So what goes over the 1? Well, I need to ask myself, how did I get from 5 to 1? What was my change? What caused the change? Well, I know that 5 divided by 5 equals 1. So I divided by 5. So if I divide by 5 here, that means that on the top, to get to column 2, I need to divide by 5. So 20 divided by 5 gives me 4. So that means that I sell 4 hot dogs for every 1 hamburger. Another way we could have looked at this is 20 divided by 5 gives me 4 to 1. 20 divided by 5 gives me 4 to 1. Because remember, ratios are fractions. Okay, but let's say that I sell 4 hamburgers. Let's say I sell 4 hamburgers. How how many hamburgers or hot dogs do I sell? Well, now that we know our unit rate is 4 to 1, so for every 4 hot dogs, I'm selling 1 hamburger. I can use this ratio right here, 4 to 1, and just multiply forward every time. So what's 1 times 4? Well, 1 times 4 is 4. And 4 times 4 is 16. So my ratio is 16 to 4. So if I now use 4 over 1 as my ratio of how many hot dogs to hamburgers, I can solve any problem because I know the rate. I mean, it's really hard to figure out what did I multiply by to get from 5 to 4. I mean, I divided and that's a weird thing. That's too weird. So we're gonna make it easier on ourselves and do 4 to 1. Okay, and last, let's say that I sold 60 hot dogs. A lot of hot dogs. Okay, how many hamburgers did I then sell out of my food truck? So I could do 60 divided by 4. So 60 divided by 4, and I get 15. So 60 divided by 4 gives me 15. Because I could look at this like 15, 30, 45, 60, right? Okay, so 15. So that means that 15 is my ratio. So from 1 to 15, I multiply by 15, 4 to 60, I multiply by 15, and I figured that out by using division. So if we were to write our ratios, what the equivalent ratios are out of this table, well, our ratios are 20 to 5, 4 to 1, 16 to 4, and 60 to 15. Those are all of our ratios, and they are all equivalent. All right, so how do we find unit rate in a ratio table? What did we do? We use division. So we use division to go from our initial ratio to 1. Okay, let's try another one and see how this works. Okay, sorry, I had to make that not so blurry. Okay, let's say that now I own a bakery. Okay, so now I own a bakery, and in my bakery I sell pies to cakes. All right, so, and for every 6 pies, I sell 3 cakes. So for every 6 pies, I sell 3 cakes. So people must like pie, or maybe it just has, I don't know, better price. Who knows? Okay, so I want to know, how do I get to 1? How do I get to my unit rate of 1? So I can look at this and I can say 6 divided by 3, right? Or I can figure out how to go from 3 to 1. Well, 6 divided by 3 doesn't really work this time. So we're just going to go 3 to get to 1. So how do I go from 3 to 1? So to get from 3 to 1, I had to divide by 3. Okay, so there's my unit rate. I need to divide by 3. So what I do to the bottom, I then need to do to the top. So if I divide by 3 here, I'm going to divide by 3 right there. So 6 divided by 3 gives me 2. So for it's 2 to 1 is my ratio. So I sell 2 pies for every 1 cake. 2 to 1. Now with this ratio, I can then figure out how many when I have 12 cakes or when I have 30 pies. Okay, so let's do it. Let's figure out what I did. So how did I go from 1 to 12? Well, I multiplied by 12. 12 was my multiplier. So on the top then, I have to go and multiply by 12. So 2 times 12 is 24. 24 out of 12. This is double, right? So this one needed to be double, that one's double, this one is double, so it works. Now I want to know, how do I go from 2 to 30? How do I go from 2 to 30? Well, if I don't know that off the top of my head, I could ask myself, what is 30 divided by 2, or half of 30? Well, I know that's 15. Well, 15 double is 2. So I know now that I had to multiply by 15 to get the hole on the bottom filled out. All right, so my equivalent ratios from this table, when I pull out the ratios in the table, I have 6 to 3, I have 2 to 1, I have 24 to 12, and I have 30 to 15. Those are my ratios. Okay, last thing is a try it for you. I want to know what happens when I have people and benches. Okay, so here's your try it. 1, you're going to find me the unit rate, and then 2, fill in the missing numbers in the table. So we have people sitting on benches. They're just having a nice, lovely day, sitting on benches in the park, not in the hail, because it's hailing outside. Okay, so for every 9 people, we need 3 benches. And I want to know how many people can sit on one bench at a time. What happens when I have 18 people? And maybe what happens when I have 4 benches? How many people do I have sitting? Okay, so right now you are going to hit pause on the video so that you don't hear me solving. You are going to solve this problem by figuring out how to go from one to the next box, find out what the change is, and then write down the equivalent ratios. All right, so hit pause. All right, so to get from 9 to 3, or 3 to 1, so how did I go from 3 to 1? Well, I divided by 3. So here I need to divide by 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. So that means that I have a ratio of 3 to 1. So for every bench, I'm going to have 3 people per bench. So 3 people can fit on a bench comfortably. Now, I want to know then, how do I go from 3 to 18? How many people do I have, or how many benches do I have? Well, if I have 18 people sitting, that means that I had to multiply by 6. So on the bottom, I need to multiply my unit rate by 6. That means that I have a ratio of 18 to 6. So I need 6 benches for 18 people. Okay, but what if I have 4 benches? How many people can sit down? Well, if I have 4 benches, it took me a multiplier of 4 to get from 1 to 4. So on the top, I'm going to say 3 times 4, and I am going to get 12. So when I have 4 benches, I have 12 people sitting. So my equivalent ratios are 9 to 3, 3 to 1, 18 to 6, and last but not least, 12 to 4. All right, your job right now is to answer your essential question. How do you find unit rate in a ratio table? What do we have to do to find the unit rate and then use the unit rate? And then what is your rating of understanding? What's your rating of understanding of unit rate in a ratio table? 1. I am still stuck on how do you get from the initial 1 to the 1. What is unit rate? I don't know. I'm so confused, Miss Englander. I need help. 2. Oh, I'm understanding this. I just need to divide to 1. And what I do to the bottom, I need to do to the top, but I still need some practice moving forward from my unit rate. Or 3. I totally understand this. I know how to get from my first ratio to the 1, and I know how to get from the 1 and multiply forward to get to the rest of them. So rate yourself, answer your essential question, and then when you are finished, you may either head to the Google Classroom to ask me some questions about what you are stuck on, or 2, head on over to Big Ideas and get your practice work done. And as always, make it a great day the Cougar way.